Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to.
Join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical, transformational journey.
Welcome back to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is pod number 125. My name is Jay, and I'm here with my co-host, Leta Herman. And today, it's all about fire, 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 more about fire.
Yes. Welcome back, students of alchemy. Today, we're continuing our conversation about the yin and yang aspects of each of the 5 elements. And in this case, we're doing the other half of the fire element today.
Yes, and nothing is too simple here for this podcast. We're going to keep breaking it down. Instead of the fire element having 2 types like the other elements, they get 4 types because fire always wants more, more, more. How do they like it? How do they more, more, more? Right. So 2 is not going to cut it. Not enough.
Are you singing already?
I was. I know. I can't. I said I'm not going to sing today. Boy, I didn't even go 10 seconds.
We know that fires like a lot of stuff. Like they like the smorgasbord. Remember we did the episode on the smorgasbord.
Don't bring that
fire?
word up again, please. I just forgot about that word. But it's so true, and it's a good thing. No judgment. Fire has to be like fire is. They want it all. They get it all.
Yeah, we need a lot. So last episode, we talked about the pericardium and triple heater types.
AKA the illuminator and the socializer types.
And this episode, we're going to explain to you the supreme controller type.
Got the voice going already, right? Do it again.
Have that.
Go ahead. Supreme
controller.
AKA the heart type.
Yes. And the supreme sorter.
Yes. AKA the small intestine type of the fire element.
And in the past, when we've talked about fire in general, we haven't really gone too much into the fact that there are all these different types of fire.
Yeah. So if you've been wondering if you're fire or someone that's close in your life, your partner or parent or child or boss or coworker is fire, then and something didn't quite match up and you couldn't quite figure it out, and it's probably if it was about yourself, then maybe today is going to really give you some clarity and help you get one step closer in figuring out that elemental type.
Yes, and we hope all the fire listeners will start to really understand these deeper nuances of what it means to be fire, whether you're more a yin type or more a yang type of fire. Now remember, because there are 4 fire types and there are these 2 groupings, we put the illuminator or the pericardium with the triple heater socializer as one grouping. And then we put the heart, which is also called the supreme controller, with the supreme sorter or the small intestine.
Well,
so
wait. Before we go any further, I wanted to get this, just get the news out of the way because we always get so far in and we get excited and we start talking and we forget to do the business
of the podcast.
That's right. So what, Leta, is going on in the Alchemy Learning Center and the Inspired Action Podcast?
That's great. All right. So I think we can start letting everyone know that we have a new book coming out soon. Woo-hoo!
Very soon. Very soon. We're hoping to have it out for June. Pre-orders are going to start any day now. So keep an eye on social media or our newsletter, and we'll let you know when. But it's going to be on, drum roll, the 13 Ghost Points. Yay!
So yeah, this is our long-awaited book on the 13 Ghost Points, and we've taken a really interesting approach to this book.
Well, what we think is hopefully an interesting approach.
Where we've written it for both practitioners and self-cultivators, the listeners out there, all of you inspired actioneers, we think you're going to like this book.
Because we really feel, and we live this life, and we teach this with our students, that before you can be the practitioner with anything in alchemy, 5 elements, ghost points, you have to do it yourself, self-cultivation, to really, especially with the ghost points, to self-cultivate, to really get the power of the 13 Ghost Points.
Yes, so we'll let you know soon when you can pre-order the book, and we're super excited to be bringing this material to you. It's basically our life's work.
Yes, it's been a long time coming on this book for us. We've been working on it for a long time, and Leta certainly has been working with these Ghost Points for over 20 years. So it's really a fascinating way that we've kind of put this together for, again, practitioners and self-cultivators. So, or self-cultivators and then practitioners.
Yes, and we'll probably have some live events in the Alchemy Learning Center as we get closer to that launch date. So we'll keep you posted. We're going to be doing lots of cool stuff with online classes. And, we always are just trying to help you better understand yourself, your family, your clients, the elements, the alchemy, all of that. So you can check that out.
Yeah. And so it's going to be, again, a lot of things coming up. And we are always trying to have new ideas. So if you have an idea for an event or a class or a workshop or a podcast, we've gotten a couple of those lately. So just, send them out to us, email. And if you also want to send in your video, we've been getting a flurry of videos lately for helping you figure out your top elements. So go ahead and you can email us those videos at Leta@inspiredactionpodcast.com or Jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
Basically, we're looking to see what your natural walk is at your normal pace and then a second walk at your fast walking pace.
This helps us see if there's maybe some self-consciousness about the walking exercise that may be interfering with an accurate assessment. And it's really hard to look at your own walk too. So it's good for us to see that.
And if you're going to send us your video, make sure you wear flat shoes, no flip-flops, no big fat boots, and barefoot's good too.
Yeah, and a sidewalk or a long, hallway.
Yeah. I thought you meant them walking sideways.
No.
Walk forward and back to the camera.
Yes. You don't have to do handstands or somersaults or sideways. You just have to walk normal and then at a slow, normal pace and then a quicker pace, but long, like a sidewalk.
Yes, I got it now.
Walk. And also we want to give a shout out and thanks to people writing reviews on the podcast in any of our books that we have out there. So that's great. It makes us happy. And we do read and say thank you to every review that we get.
Yes. And in fact, we like to share our lovely swag with anyone who writes a review.
Yes. So if you don't know what swag is, it's t-shirts, hats, mugs. Sometimes we have water bottles. Sometimes we have notebooks. And, you always can send a photo or post it online too if you're in your gear.
And, we have our super cute logo. So if you can write a review for us anywhere on the big three A's like Apple, Amazon, Audible, or
we could throw in the S or the Y for Spotify and YouTube because we have some presence there. So we're just spreading that word everywhere to get the little Inspired Action podcast out there.
Yes, and it's working because we have just had so many more listeners recently and it's just growing and growing. And I know you out there are sharing it as well because I hear that all the time. So thank you for just verbally just telling your friends and they're listening. So it's working. So thank you again.
That's great. Thank you so much. And we're very, very grateful. And also just keep an eye out. We're really working on the newsletter and we have some big changes coming up in the Alchemy Learning Center on our membership. So we got lots going on.
Yeah.
It's fun. We're having fun.
Let's get going.
All right, let's get back to the heart of this podcast. Get that, right? The heart. Tell us more about the heart types, Leta. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Well, we've been thinking a lot about this as we meet more and more with the heart types out in the world. So we have a theory that maybe the heart types don't end up in our office much.
Well,
Jay.
We're not sure, but we're not really sure, but they're rare.
Yeah, and it might just be because they kind of tend to their own stuff. Like the heart types, we call them the supreme controllers. So it might be that they don't want to give up their power or give it away to others, even doctors or healers.
Can I say air quotes control?
Yeah, for sure.
They have it, they like it, they don't like to relinquish it.
Yes. And of course, they might get really sick at times, and then they need help. And then they're going to be really insistent that they get help from everyone they can because that's just who they are. They want to regain control. So the heart types we typically meet, they are super struggling and that's why they come in to see us. But we're wondering if there's a lot more heart types out there than we even see. And it's just that when they're healthy, why would they come in for a general tune-up?
Yeah, I think, there are definitely certain elemental types that are more likely to get general support, upkeep, so to speak.
Yeah.
Or maybe some life strategy or different help along the way in their lives. And maybe fire's not the number one for that.
Yeah, like earths, they love self-care. Even waters, like if they get a tiny little health scare, they're going to be in the office like trying
Metal
to get some
for
help.
sure.
Yeah, and woods,
Maybe not so much on the woods, but they come in and then they're gone, like one and done.
And they are focused on health. They
Yeah.
actually have the health palace. So it's not like wood is, it's just that wood might be more on the maintenance of health, like exercise, diet. They might be more likely to seek out a coach than a healer unless they're not well.
And I always tell my wood clients, if you have wood first or second, that you really should consider a massage therapist to help with those tight muscles and tendons and ligaments. And not so much as a relaxation massage, but legitimately to get the tightness to go down a little bit.
Or, for those of you who know Gua Sha, that is amazing for
Gua
wood
Sha,
people.
cupping, massage.
They should be getting that all the time. And that's something that we do as well. And I think we've talked about Gua Sha on the podcast before. So if you don't know what that is,
Guess
I don't
what?
know the
we
number,
have a book.
But we have a book.
We wrote a book,
Yes.
the Big Little Gua Sha Book.
Yes. So, that's something to really think about
What a
if you have
coincidence.
wood in your top elements. So
Nice way to work that book in.
we digress.
Yes.
And so if a fire person, especially a heart person, has had a health scare in the past, they might be really diligent about getting health care as well.
Sure. And we have this little theory that maybe, just maybe, there's a lot more heart people out there than previously thought in the Chinese medicine community. Like you just said, we think there's more out there.
It's just a theory we have, but whether it's true or not, we do want to say that hearts are very, very special.
Very, very special.
Yes.
And we don't even need to use air quotes there because they are the real deal special in the world, because these are the types of people that are the emperors. They really are like lords and sovereigns in the energetic world.
Yes, and that's their actual job title in the Chinese medicine classical literature.
And if the world doesn't really know what to do with the people who are acting like kings and queens, but maybe not like acting, who just are that energetic type, who won't conform to society or peer pressure. The world doesn't know how to react to that.
Yes, unless, of course, they're really a king or a queen, like
Sure.
the Queen or King of England or something like that.
Yeah, so if your actual job in this time and space of this reality is to be a real deal queen or king, then yes, society will support you and you will be regal and controlling and everyone will just bow to you and bend to your will and everything will just be perfect in that world. However, for the rest of the people who are out there, no, not going to happen. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, right.
You're going to have to hide that little crown.
Maybe not. We're going to talk
maybe
about
not,
that
right?
today.
Maybe the world wants you to hide that crown. We're saying you don't have to.
Right. So this is what the whole podcast is about. Imagine if you are naturally like a king or queen in how you are authentically in your life, then what? How can you be your true self in the world and also be a fire heart type who wants to be liked, just like all the other fires? If you do that, often there are only just a very few people who you can relate to.
This is the conundrum. The cause of so much of chaos and strife in the heart person's life is this very thing that we're talking about.
Yes. Okay. So let's just break this down, Jay, into yin and yang again, just so everyone remembers what we're doing. In our last pod, number 124, we compared the pericardium or the illuminator type with the triple heater / socializer type, and we put them on a continuum where the illuminator was on the right because it's more yin and the triple heater was on the left because it's more yang.
In this podcast, we're going to compare the other two types of fire, the heart and the small intestine.
Yes. So we can put those on a continuum as well. We can put the heart, which is the yin type, called the supreme controller, all the way on the right, and the small intestine, the yang type, the supreme sorter, on the left. And the question for you as a listener, if you think you're one of these types, is where do you stand on that continuum? If you're fire and you're not those other two types we had in the last episode, where do you stand on this continuum?
I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's start, Leta. We've got to start with the supreme controller.
Yes.
Right? We just have to.
Yes. Now, there's a poem called The 13 Appearances in Chinese Medicine or Chinese Theory, and that it's super famous. And the best translation of it that I like is from a book called Rooted in Spirit by Claude Larre and Elizabeth Rochat de la Vallee. And there's a line in that poem that says, "When something takes charge of the beings, we speak of the heart."
Yeah, that's really nice. We'll put that in the show notes. So if anyone wants to go super nerdy and read it,
Yeah.
it'll be right there.
Right.
So the heart is what takes charge of us. That is just so powerful.
Yes. So that's because in Chinese theory, the spirit lives in the heart. So when you're born, you get a spirit, and your body's just a vehicle for that spirit. And the empty space inside your heart is where your spirit lives.
And I just want to say, Leta, what we mean by spirit is there's something that gives us guidance in every moment, like how to live our lives.
Yeah, so we don't always listen to our own guidance.
Yeah, so we can kind of space out on ourselves and what we really want. It's kind of our right to make a mess of our own lives, right? If we're in that space.
Yes, and when we're connected internally, we always somehow know what our spirit wants. But you're right, we can just ignore that.
Yeah, especially if you're the heart type.
Yes, and the heart people are hopefully more vocal about what their spirit actually wants and needs in life. When something's not going to work for them, they often won't go along with it.
Yeah, that's kind of the opposite of the earth types, the earth elemental types, who are very accommodating.
Yes, earths are like, they're just so willing to go along with the people they love. Like they just want to make everyone sort of happy in some levels. And yes, they'll sometimes speak out, but they're just a lot more accommodating. I like that word. But you know what? Even fire types, Jay, they can be like that too, because they might know something's not great for them, but they also really want to be liked. So they might put up with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that the heart types elementally, energetically, are less like that. They might want to be friendly. They might just want to kind of, I don't know, be like the other fires, like the other kids on the block there.
Yes.
They just can't override what their own spirit and heart are saying to them. They have to listen.
Yes. It's like heaven is directing them. They can't go against it. And how can you go against heaven when you're fire, when you're that kind of fire?
Well, you can. I mean, sure, you can, but
Yes, but if you do, it's going to be really hard for you. And it's so much harder for a heart fire type to do that. Unlike the other fire types, when hearts are in a good place, they're not vulnerable. They're not needing to be liked. They're just completely present with life.
So what is the actual job, so to speak, of the supreme controller?
Okay, so we say that the heart holds the spirit, and its official title is called the residence of the spirit.
Yes, and I've heard you talk about how it's also called the emperor or the empress's bedroom, basically. It's that inner sanctum of where that spirit is completely safe.
Yes, and I also like to use another metaphor.
Not to pile another metaphor on the metaphors of the metaphors, but go ahead.
Okay, I think this one's worth it.
Okay, they always are. Yes, we always learn from the metaphor.
Okay, so if you can think of your spirit like it's birds sitting in a tree, happily singing, they're taking in the sun, everything's perfect, love and light, but then...
But what then? That sounds perfect. Why can't it just stay like that? Dun, 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 dun. What? Tell us.
Someone comes along and shakes the tree vigorously, and all the birds fly off the tree and hover about, nervously, anxiously, because suddenly the tree's no longer safe. It doesn't feel safe.
So the tree is the heart?
Yes. And if you're out in the world and your heart feels quiet and still inside and not chaotic, then that's the best way for a heart person to be, or pretty much any of us. We all have hearts.
Yeah.
And the spirit birds are happy, happy, happy because everything is right in the world. The heart is calm.
But then someone comes and shakes you again, like, ah!
Yes, and that's what we call the wobble. Something outside causes the inside to be shaken up, like someone shaking that tree.
So why wouldn't you call it the shaker, not the wobbler?
There you go. Okay.
The shaker or the wobble. I mean, I like the wobble, but we just
Isn't
said...
there a bird like that? A warbler?
That's a warbler. The shaker or the warbler.
All right.
Your choice.
Well, for whatever reason, the inner heart suddenly starts to feel...
Maybe it's a tree full of warblers that suddenly wobble because someone shakes the tree.
There you go. That's it.
That's a good image there. Right now, go ahead.
The point being that your inner heart suddenly feels chaotic and shaky inside.
Yeah, that feeling of stillness in the heart is gone. We all know that feeling, but if you're a heart person, then you really probably know that feeling really well. There's a bunch of energy and it's swirling around and it's warbly and wobbly and shaking and
And something has disturbed the spirit in the heart. Now the spirit is fluttering around, all anxious, and some people actually feel like their spirit is out of the heart. In fact, when you have a real shock, the definition of shock in Chinese medicine is basically spirit disturbance. It is actually like your spirit is fluttering around above you and no longer in your heart at all.
Yeah, I can imagine this happens to everyone in shock, not just hearts, though, because that's that feeling. You just described it perfectly.
For sure. And for years, I had a mobile origami sculpture in my clinic that was made of birds. And my kid made it in grammar school, and I loved pointing it out to people who came in and were in shock. And I'm like, look at the birds. This is how we want your birds to be, all peaceful. And your birds,
Oh, good. Then you went and shook it and
Now we have to understand that the heart people are really sensitive and aware of when their heart isn't that happy bird in the tree.
Or when someone's going to come up and shake their tree, maybe. Maybe they can sense it.
Yeah. And like you said, shock can happen to anyone, especially a big shock, like a car accident or something. And we know shock has physical symptoms when you're dazed or dizzy or confused. And that's because we really can't live our normal lives if our spirit isn't seated in its heart home. It's kind of impossible to be ourselves, no matter what element we are, if that happens.
Yeah, and for the heart energy types, this wobble or warble or shake or whatever we're calling it, you even called it flittering, like whatever we're calling it, it's bad even when it's mild, right?
Yeah. That's the thing. That's what we need to understand for all of the heart people listening. It's like if you're not paying attention to this in yourself, then you're actually going to create chaos in your life.
It could be just a small wobble.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be like the giant wobble, or the little ones will start to get bigger in magnitude.
Exactly. And it's not like you would do that purposefully. Who wants to create chaos in their lives? But it's as if you become a vortex of chaos that begins to emit out of you. And then suddenly there's chaos everywhere around you.
I like that. Vortex of chaos.
Yes, that's it.
Yes, and I'm sure this happens a lot to the heart.
Yes.
Heart type fire.
Yes. These supreme controllers, it's one of the ways we begin to be able to identify them. We look at how much chaos has existed in their lives. And if their life has been chaotic because they haven't been totally 100% of the time holding on to their authenticity, their sovereignty over themselves within a quiet heart, then the only other option is chaos all around them. So it's something that the rest of us, we can't really understand that.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
Chaos is hard to understand in a normal situation. What about, it's just a lot of unpredictability, a lot of changeability. And if you magnify that,
Yeah.
that's hard to really understand.
And when they're in chaos mode, things and emotional states, they change like the weather in New England in the springtime, which is right now outside. And 1 minute, it's the most multicolored, like beautiful sunrise. And the next minute, it's a snow squall, followed by a gorgeous, cool blue sky day. And then the next minute, a hailstorm, followed by, hey, a solar eclipse.
Yes, we're still thinking about that.
And that's like the moods of the heart. People, when they're not feeling quiet inside, it affects everyone around them. And that can be, as you can imagine, they're either going to be in that total stillness and we feel that, or they're going to be in total chaos. And that's what we feel being around them.
I think the chaos often comes out as a lot of emotions, maybe very expressive, moving from crying to easily laughing hilariously to even crying from joy. It's a lot of chaotic emotions.
Yes. And that's part of the spirit's role in all of us, to have emotions, which gives heart people especially enormous compassion with no effort, really. Remember they're yin, and compassion is just part of being so in touch with your spirit. The spirits are our messengers from heaven.
So if you listen to this and it really resonates with you, then it might be you. It might be how you are. And the coolest thing of all about this is all you need to do is recognize it, understand it, start to see it and be aware of it. And that chaos can be, I don't want to say stopped, but it can certainly be less, and then maybe even less, and then maybe stopped. There could be a huge healing for people just to become aware that it's an actual thing.
Yeah. This idea of stopping the chaos is huge. When heart people start realizing they have little to no wiggle room and that they have to hold the line of that stillness inside always, and they become aware of what throws them off, then they can stop doing the chaos thing. And that's when their lives can really turn around. It's like night and day watching them go through that. They just begin to cultivate. They really like self-cultivate what it means to be a heart person. And really, it's not a curse to be a supreme controller at all. It's actually an incredible gift. But often we need to show them why that's a gift and not a curse.
Yeah, once you can try to get the control over the chaos or the chaotic moments, they have to simply just realize that the chaos isn't coming from outside of them. The chaos is coming from the wobble, the warble, the wobble, the shake, whatever we want to call it. That's inside of them. And they can have control over that wobble if they can figure out they can choose differently. And that is a big breakthrough. And like, that's just like life changing, like you just said, but can you explain a little bit more about what you just said, how it's a gift? Because I know it, you know it, but we want to explain it a little bit.
Yeah, we really want everyone to understand
it is a gift.
Yeah. It's actually not that they're actually controlling anything. So in that sense of the name, we really need to think of it more like an emperor. Technically, in ancient times, the emperor did nothing. The ministers of the kingdom did everything. So the king or queen, they just sit on the throne and hold the position of the sovereign. So that's why the heart is yin.
Yeah. Isn't it really about self-control rather than control over others, which is an easy thing to say.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more challenging to actually, live.
Yes. Well, remember, I mean, no one really wants to accept control freaks in our society. But this is about authority over yourself if you're a supreme controller. You have to have complete authority over yourself. And if you're in an oppressive situation, it feels like you can barely survive, especially if you're being forced to be or do something that's not right for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they're simply unlikely to be compliant and they will not just go along with the status quo.
Yes.
It's challenging.
That's it.
It's challenging for them and for those around them.
Yeah. And as we explained in the last episode, the heart is like the filament in the light bulb, and the pericardium is like the light bulb itself. Both don't actually do anything. They're just shining light. And in fact, their official job function, as we said, is, just the resonant of the spirit. But you could also say the radiance of the spirit stems from it.
That's the filament of the light bulb.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. Another metaphor.
Yeah, so the heart just holds that radiance. And from there, the illuminator, the pericardium, makes sure that light gets out in the world.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. And that manifests a lot through the person's eyes. We always say the fire person has the twinkle.
Yes.
Has that look in their eyes.
Yes, and both the pericardium and heart types, they're both yin, but they have very twinkly eyes. And again, the heart is the source of the light, and then the pericardium amplifies it outward into the world, which is why we called it the illuminator.
Yeah, so for the heart, it's even less doing and more being, because it's not so much about engaging other people with that light as it is for the people on the illuminator socializer spectrum continuum, as we say. It's about being.
Yes, the heart people, it's just about being. Now, I don't want to make it sound like they don't do a lot, because oddly, all fires are very young. It's not like they are just sitting home on their throne all day.
Polishing their crowns, right?
Yes.
No, they're not.
They still do tons of stuff.
Only on Saturdays.
Right. They're still doing tons of stuff like everyone else. It's just while they're doing regular life stuff, they're hopefully holding that stillness inside where the spirit can feel safe. And for the rest of the world, there's a light that they just emanate. I think the difference between their light and the illuminator is that they care a little less about having tons of friends. In fact, they might find it really hard to have a lot of friends.
That is one of the distinctions when we talk about fire people having 50, air quote, friends, or 150 or 250. They might all be close acquaintances, but for heart, they might only have one or two really close friends that they can trust, that they can really be themselves around. And the rest of their friends are just more distant.
Yeah. And it usually feels, for heart people especially, they sometimes are disappointed about their relationships. They can be a little one-sided. And this is really important because it brings up another key feature of heart people. They are the mirrors for everyone else.
I think this is probably the hardest part of being the heart fire in the world is being the mirror. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just challenging. I keep saying that word, challenging.
They literally walk through life, and for some reason, the way their light is in the world, a lot of people are attracted to them, but they are attracted to them because when they interact with them, they are actually seeing themselves in that mirror. So if you don't know who you are, just go hang out with a heart person because they'll show you. And they don't have to do anything. You just look at them and you truly see yourself and nothing but yourself, including all your faults, all your flaws, all the little lies you tell yourself, all the avoidance, the dodging, the evading, the fudging you're doing in your life, all the inauthentic ways you might be being in the world, if you are. And this is why people really have an aversion to some heart people in the world. It's not the heart people aren't doing anything. They're just being the mirror. It's because maybe the people looking in the mirror don't want to see themselves and they just can't cope with that.
Yeah, either that or they love it.
Yes.
People will tell the hearts their whole life stories and never once ask the heart person about their lives. It's very one-sided. They love the mirror.
Yes.
It's all about themselves.
Yes.
Yes. And that's a big burden for that heart type person to carry.
Yes, yes. And some heart people get a little, depressed about it because they might actually want to talk about their lives as well. But the second they try, people steer the conversation back to themselves. And the heart person just wants someone to really see them like they see you. So the heart people, they just want to find an environment where they can be truly authentic, to find another person who can be a mirror for them. In order to be a mirror for someone else, it means you have to first truly accept yourself and have no agenda. That's what a mirror does.
Yes, even for maybe people who might usually be in very two-sided relationships like the earth types.
Yes, earths are much more like that.
There's something about the way hearts reflect back a person's life that even the earths can't help but focus on themselves when they're with this heart type of fire.
Yeah.
I can imagine a heart type fire person could make a career out of this kind of feature.
Totally. Makes me think, I know an amazing psychic who, this has been her superpower. She is one of these supreme controllers and she sits with people and she just is the mirror. She's like bringing in the entire universe and galaxies swirling and other planets and shooting stars. And it's like a wild ride when you sit with her and you have to really see yourself. And afterwards you feel totally exposed and vulnerable. And you're like, what the heck just happened?
And that is amazing because it could be really good for both people, I guess.
Yeah.
Even if there is chaos in the heart type person's life.
Yes. And actually with her life, it is like her life is whirling galaxies. She's that big and there is so much that feels chaotic because she has difficulty finding that stillness for herself inside her, but she's continuously offering her gifts to the world. It's a pretty amazing gift.
Yeah, I think that is a really good gift.
Yeah, and she helps you see beyond your own lifetime, really, and it's as if she's connected with your spirit and sees where you've come from and where you're headed in terms of your lifetime to lifetime journey. And I think a lot of hearts can do that.
She's a psychic too.
Yeah,
so
she's a psychic.
Tapped into that.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do that.
But it's like, even if they're not aware of it, they have some ability. And even if you don't
No, I meant the lifetimes.
Oh, the
Seeing
lifetimes, yes.
Swirling galaxies.
Swirling galaxies, yes.
Maybe not everyone.
Not everyone.
But you could.
Yes. And even if you don't understand as a heart person this, you have these gifts, like another person's spirit when you meet them. It's like you connect that way. And I believe you actually have this ability for your heart. So I think that's why heart people don't have a lot of wiggle room around other people. Like, they often report that people can really go off on them.
Like mad and yelling and emotional, sure.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to say this word for like the 10th time already. It's one of the challenges of being this heart type.
Yes.
A fire person. People can maybe attack them or criticize them or just blah all over them for seemingly bizarre reasons that they don't understand.
Yes, and even people in their professional capacities do it with heart people. Literally, like a heart person's therapist might start yelling at them.
That's not cool.
It's not cool. No. And so, And this is what they tell us. I mean, it's not like it's not, we're just making this up. It really happens. So people would never expect someone like that to lose their shit, and yet they lose it with the hearts.
Yeah, I can imagine that this type of gift can truly infuriate people. It's the control issue again, I think. It's like, I don't know, I think they emanate that out.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. People don't want them to be too much in control. And I thought it was just that for a long time that made people get mad. But I've had people even get accosted in like a checkout line in a convenience store, or someone we know got yelled at while boarding a plane for putting her bag in the wrong place.
Which wasn't in the wrong place.
Yeah. And the woman just screamed, and it was in a way that people don't normally do. And she was just like doing literally nothing. So sometimes I think it has more to do with the person's own spirit again.
Or the energetic vibrations.
Yes.
That's interacting. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they have a negative charge. Like,
yeah.
It's like you just don't know what's going to resonate.
It's really weird, but if that person's spirit, the heart person's spirit's off, first of all, in themselves, and they have this chaotic thing happening, then they look like they literally might look at the person in the wrong way, quote unquote. And it's as if the other person's spirit responds with that chaos. And it often ends up like they're berating or attacking the fire person.
Yeah, it could be something in which other people cannot stand that chaos or that energetic chaos. And they're just trying to put them back into order, maybe without even knowing, subconsciously.
Yeah.
Just with that sort of desperate feeling. Like,
that they have to get the control.
Yes, they have
something.
to get that control.
Yeah. So the rest of us, we feel that chaos, and then something in us urgently tries to squelch it. We try to rein in the heart person.
I get that rein, right? Rein it in.
With a G in it, right?
Yes, like our authority or the regality tries to conquer the heart person.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's like something in us wants to conquer them.
Yeah. Well, that is it for the Supreme Controller. Let's move on a little bit for the Supreme Sorters, which is a little different,
Yeah. So you can think of the small intestine or the Supreme Sorter as an ear to the heart. Of course, I'm using another metaphor
I
here.
know. Let's keep a scoreboard. Another one. That's okay. It's a lot of fun.
Yes. It's as if our hearts all have an innate note that we're all born with that identifies ourselves, our true note, and it's uniquely and distinctly ours. And the Supreme Sorter's job is to evaluate everything that we encounter physically, even thought forms and ideas. So the Supreme Sorter's listening to the notes of those things that are being emitted and compares those notes to the unique heart note that is you, to see if there's a resonance.
Yeah, for the energetic nature of people, places, rooms, food, anything. It could be some kind of resonance.
Yes, and in Chinese medicine, sound itself is the purest essence in the world. So you could also say all those things are the essences of life. So going back to the sounds, I just love this idea that everything has a note, a sound, and that the sound is being compared to your true sound of your heart. That's the Supreme Sorter's job. We all have it. It's not a mental function at all. It's your spirit that's doing the sorting. You can't get too heady about it. It's an instant response. Does it resonate or not? It's a simple question, a binary question, and technically everyone has that sorting feature.
I know, I do. I have fire second. I'm always checking everything out. But I think, Leta, it's the magnitude of how much sorting is being done.
Yes, and the kind of sorting, because I want to point out, Jay, if you're wood, you're doing a higher level evaluation of everything. It's not just that binary yes or no. You're probably doing more strategizing. So your sorting is got a lot more going on. Like, would this thing help me with my goal? That's a wood way of doing it. That's the gallbladder. But the fire processing, it's really basic. It's a binary function, good or bad, good for me, bad for me. That's its only function.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Yeah. And the Supreme Sorter has to take in everything and put everything through that filter. So if you go shopping with a Supreme Sorter, it's really, interesting to watch. They pick up everything. They touch everything. They interact with everyone. They're just out there sorting, processing. Or if they come to your house, they can get really, really snoopy. They'll open all your cabinets. They'll look at all your personal stuff because they're sorting.
Yeah, and guess what? A lot of people don't like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
I mean, sometimes you can just like to catch them in the act.
Yes.
Kind of makes it fun, right? They're just doing their work, the work of
Yeah.
the heart. They're just, everything in the universe is either in harmony with their heart or not on harmony with their heart. And they're on a mission to know which it is. Like they have to do that. They
Yes.
have to know.
It can look a little obsessive. So one way we can look at it is if we talk about your digestive system itself, since the small intestine plays an important role in digestion. First, the stomach breaks down the food, and then in Chinese medicine, we say this: it's the small intestine's job to sort all those nutrients coming from the stomach into the good stuff that will eventually become part of you.
And the stuff we need to eliminate, which gets peed and pooped out, right?
Yes, exactly.
Not sexy, but hey, it's got to happen,
There
right?
you go. That's the supreme sorter's job. It does all the work, so the heart does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's simply about resonance, where it resonates with your heart and what you're going to pee and poop out.
Yes, there you go. That's it.
That's a supreme sorter's job.
Yes, so if we put the supreme controller and the supreme sorter on that continuum, what's important to distinguish between the yin and yang versions is that they're working together. The supreme sorter is serving the supreme controller to help your heart decide what to accept into your life.
And what to eliminate.
Right. And from this understanding of what's good for you, your actual purpose in life can emerge.
Or maybe you could say, here's another metaphor, that it's making sure things don't cloud your heart's purposes. We'll throw some clouds in there, maybe
Yes.
some Tibetan clouds. And
Yes.
so they don't cloud up your heart's purpose. Right?
Yes. That's a great way to say it, actually, because we're talking about clarity. So let me get into Chinese medicine.
Well, we don't want the clouds. We want no clouds.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we talk a lot about the heart's purpose, which actually is held in conjunction with the earth element. So we're going to talk about this more in our next podcast, but the heart needs a purpose. But remember, the heart doesn't do anything. So we need the earth mind to put thought into defining that purpose. But it's still the heart's purpose itself. And we call this kind of mind the heart/mind.
Yes, it made me think, as opposed to the brain, which we like to call the monkey mind.
Yes.
Because it just blathers on and obsessively about everything, like monkeys chattering in the trees before it gets wobbled or shaked. Right?
Yes.
The monkey mind is that non-stopping chatter.
Yes. And the brain is a hollow organ like all these yang organs, meaning it's processing, but it's not one of the 12 primary organs. It's actually called the extraordinary organ. It just processes things all the time, like the small intestine and the gallbladder and the rest, but it doesn't have a meridian like the 12 primary organs. It's called an extraordinary organ because it also stores things like your uterus, and there's 6 of these extraordinary organs, which is another podcast entirely. But they both do something and hold something. The brain does.
Let's definitely do. That's a big concept, and let's get that on another podcast.
Yes. But the point is, the brain is the monkey mind, and the heart mind is kind of how your spirit interacts with your mind, where they work together. And it's the heart mind that we need to listen to. And the small intestine is the ear of the heart. It's playing that big part in listening, because when you first need to listen to the spirit's true sound, and from there you can think about your purpose. And then we're in the realm of earth.
So the heart does nothing. It's simply being, like the emperor, as you mentioned before in the earlier metaphor, seated on the throne. That heart's presence enables everything to be done correctly. Well, as correctly as in according to the Tao, right? As long as we're, listening, your heart is listening and you're being, then things will flow.
You got it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, all right, what are we going to call the official title of the small intestine?
Okay, should I use my official voice again?
No, but I know you're gonna.
All right, I have to. I'll try to do it differently. The small intestine is responsible for receiving and making things thrive. Transformed substances stem from it. Or another way we could say it is its function is to separate the pure substances from the impure substances. And that's why it's the transformer of chi.
Actually, I was just thinking we could say the new name of the small intestine is the alchemist.
The alchemist,
Right?
definitely.
Because of the transformer of
it's the
chi.
transformer.
Yes,
Yes.
I love that. So what is the separation function of the alchemist?
The alchemist. All right. I'm glad you brought that up because that's going to explain this idea of the clouds you brought up. It's funny that you said that because the small intestine is sorting what we call the clear from the cloudy. That's the distinction it's making. What is clear to you? That's the question. You being really clear, not confused or cloudy.
Clear with a chance of meatballs.
Yes.
Is that a kid's book?
Yes.
Right? And then it's the heart's job to just stay in the emptiness of the center of the heart, the heart's void, and stay tranquil there so that the purpose and the will to do can coexist, can exist unhampered by life.
Yeah. And that's a tall order for heart people. It's really hard.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
I can imagine there's a lot of distractions for both heart and small intestine people.
Yes. And the more yang you are, you can get really distracted by all the stuff out there. And you can obsessively be sorting to the point where you don't get much done.
Yeah, I can get that. Just, I can imagine like social media and, smartphones and different things can be super overwhelming, super overwhelming.
Yeah. And sometimes the small intestine types can't stop. That's where their supreme sorter gets panicked. And it's like as if, oh my God, I can't miss it.
Supreme panicker.
Yes, the supreme panicker. And it never gets a rest. It's just being bombarded by stuff. It's on overload. And when you present the small intestine with like a single choice, just clear or cloudy, it does great. But let's just say you said, all right, out of these 5 things or these 100 things, what do you think? Then it's like total overload.
That's called TikTok, Leta.
Yes.
That was TikTok. That is called TikTok.
Yes.
And that's a big challenge for a lot of people.
Yes. Right. We all have small intestines, so we could all be overwhelmed by this, but definitely the supreme sorter types. Anyone on this fire continuum might have trouble with distractions and overload from obsessively sorting.
Yeah. Or for obsessively doing TikTok.
Yes, right.
Or Instagram or Facebook.
Yes.
Or you pick your challenge then.
Yes. Right. All right. So, what are some of the challenges for the heart types? So, for the supreme controller, many heart types are actually in hiding. And this is what you talked about at the very beginning, Jay. And that makes life way more difficult for them. Like they're not willing to wear that crown. And the challenge for them is to be themselves, just like all the other elements. We all need to be ourselves. And it's almost more true for hearts because when they're not being themselves, we've already talked about this, the world makes life way more difficult for them. So they have to live the authority they were born with.
Yes, and that could be really challenging for some. It would be challenging for anyone. I totally get that.
It's almost like they have to realize that they're like the sun and they can burn people who get too close. They have to understand that the fire has this destructive nature, not mean or intentionally destructive. It can just happen. That's fire.
Yeah, we certainly learned that from all the crazy out of control fires on the planet that just burns through nature. It's not like they're selectively picking to do damage or harm. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. That's what I said in the first thing. It is what it is.
And if they're not aware of it, their friendships can easily be destroyed. So they have to learn how to tame their own fire, not in a bad way, not in an inauthentic way, but just like to be aware. So being yourself isn't about being a raging fire or a totally wild fire.
I mean, you said friendships. It could be relationships. It could be business acquaintances.
Yeah.
It could be neighbors.
Yeah.
It could be, even like in your family.
Yeah.
It can really wreak some havoc if it gets out of control. So it's about learning to own yourself, that inborn authority, that innate knowing of who you are. And that comes with a certain amount of power.
Yes, the power of love.
The power of love. Yeah.
And that power comes with a phenomenal amount of responsibility because if you're that kind of love, like being that mirror for people, then people are going to react to that. And they're constantly inviting people to be completely real with them. And while many people love that, like we said, many others may have negative responses because they don't actually want to be seen or they don't want to see themselves in the mirror. So they get confused and they think the heart person might be trying to control them.
Or it's fun for a while and then dun, dun, dun.
Right.
It's not so fun, right?
Right.
Or they think the heart person is out of control and then they try to control them, which is also a dun, dun, dun.
Yeah,
Like,
and
don't do that.
Yep. And that's why a heart person has to attend to themselves every second, every day. They don't get any breaks because when they get distracted and forget who they are, that's when all hell can break loose around them.
And that's when the chaos comes, right?
Yeah.
That's when like the sun is burning in the sky. It's not like choosing where it shines.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
But it does take a little break when it goes around the planet.
Yeah.
But at the other side of the planet gets the sun.
Yes.
It's still shining.
It's still shining.
Still shining.
Every second, every moment.
Right. You think you're getting a break, but it's just shining out somewhere else, right?
Yes.
All right. So what do they want, Leta? What do they want?
Remember, they're the mirrors for everyone else, and all they want is for someone to be that for them.
So how can we learn to be a mirror for them so they can find that safe space?
That's a great question because if you know someone who is on this fire continuum and you want to be there for them, you have to learn how to actually be a mirror. And this isn't easy. You have to let go of your identity entirely.
Yeah, there is no you.
Exactly. And you are simultaneously everything and nothing.
Yeah, and that could maybe enable a heart person to look at you and see themselves instead of you, which is,
Yeah.
a no small feat.
Yes. And the truth is,
Unless you have small feet.
yes.
Then it's a small feat for small feet.
Okay. And the truth is, to be with a heart, you don't have to do anything. It's not about doing, it's about being. What you need to do is allow them to see themselves in you as the mirror. You're giving them an environment where they are allowed to be authentic. That's what they do for others, and they desperately just want other people to do that for
And
them.
they may have never even had it before. So they've maybe never had it in their whole entire life. They've been
Yes.
kind of squashed or, put down or like too much or
Yes.
not liked, But if you
Yeah.
want to do that for them, you have to make sure, first and foremost, that you truly accept yourself and you have no agenda. You cannot try to control them.
Yes.
You have to be the mirror for them.
Yes. It's like you're riding a roller coaster with them. Remember
Another metaphor.
Yes, remember they have a lot of emotions. So together you can confront all their worries, anxieties, beliefs, expectations, self-deceptions, and their agendas.
And what do you do on a roller coaster? You strap in.
Yes.
Right? And you hold on, and it's a wild ride, okay? You might have to confront feelings of being dominated and let those go. You might have to be totally willing to surrender. It's a wild ride.
Yes, surrender to the love they are giving you, that you kind of get subsumed in it if you're willing. And all you have to do is face yourself without resistance. Let them be in control.
Sure. And everyone loves a roller coaster, right? Not everyone, but if you do and you're up for the challenge, that's why we call them the supreme controllers. It's love, capital LOVE, all caps. If you let them teach you about love, they'll teach you about your own heart. They're just asking you constantly, who are you?
The answer to that question from the heart perspective is you and me.
Yeah, I like that.
Because essentially, in love, we're all the same. That's why we can be a mirror.
Yeah. So what can we all learn from the heart fires out there is the art of the heart.
Yes, it's about being in stillness inside your heart. That's practicing the art of the heart. In order to get to that stillness, you simply have to open your heart.
Remember, if you want to practice the art of the heart, within the heart is an empty space. And that means it does nothing like the Tao does nothing. It just is.
And it's the heart person's job to just be seated on the throne in the void of the heart, in complete silence and stillness, waiting for something to fill the empty space inside the heart. So it's about fulfillment, feeling filled as everything moves through the void inside you. All your experiences, they move through. The sun, the moon, the rain, the storms, other people's emotions, your emotions. It all just has to move through. This is the movement of the spirit through you.
We all need this, Leta, right? We
Yes.
all need this. All we need to do is just connect with our innate authority to give us agency. When we are in touch with our heart's purpose, we can fulfill it without guilt or shame or games. Just
Yes.
no shame, no game, no blames, right? I say it all the time.
It's that
just
simple.
Let it happen. Just let it be.
Yeah, to be fully, without apology, yourself.
Wow. Let's just end on that.
Boom. Mic drop.
So the art of the heart, let's give her that challenge out.
Yes.
Just be. Just get in touch with your heart and see. And if you think you're this type of fire energy, then go for it.
Yeah.
Just be yourself.
Be it.
Be it.
Okay.
Don't just let that heart fly. I don't know. Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Bye. You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there? We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at leta@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog. I can't speak today. You clap, because then my bracelet claps.